On Monday, February 27th, 1939, an ambulance driving along the National 34 entered Neuilly-sur-Marne, a town of 3,000 inhabitants, yet which happens to have a very large population of hospitalized psychiatric patients. This particular ambulance, entering Ville-Évrard, carried 4 charges, some of which would have been wearing restraining cuffs designed to keep a patient's wrist fastened at his waist. One of these charges was Antonin Artaud, and it is likely that he was among those restrained, as he had refused from the start to be transferred to Ville-Évrard, considering it too far from his previous residence at Sainte-Anne. From the moment he has been notified of the transfer, he had become, to use the psychiatric term, agitated. The ambulance carrying Artaud arrived at the entrance of the section properly considered the asylum, passing the main porch and the visitation parlor on its right, and then the chapel, continuing on to the bathing house, which doubled as the welcoming area. There, the patients were undressed, bathed or showered, given haircuts, and dressed by the institution. Gray cotton uniforms in the summer month, navy blue wool in winter. As it was February, Artaud would have been made to put on the navy uniform. As with all new arrivals to Ville-Évrard, it would have been classified as a particular type and directed to the appropriate pavilion. Men first went to one side, women to the other. Once divided, 6 pavilions or wings awaited both male and female patients. The first pavilion or wing accepted the working patients. The second pavilion received the calm patients. The third wing was the infirmary. Artaud spent a brief period here to see to his feet, about which he had been complaining. The fourth comprised the elderly and bedridden admittees. The fifth was designated for the semi-agitated patients. Finally, the sixth pavilion received the cases considered agitated. Artaud was originally classed for this last wing. The fact that he had become enervated at Sainte-Anne gave reason to think he was potentially dangerous. He did not rest here long, however. Within the following 2 days, he would be sent over to the third wing and subsequently shifted among various quarters in the 6th, the 5th, and back to the 3rd. His aggressive nature was evidently responsible for these moves. Artaud would strike his fellow patients and would often upset them in his attempt to exorcise them. Once Artaud entered his wing, the 6th, he would have seen the common rooms and their sizable population resounding with cries and laughter, with some patients balancing themselves and others spinning wildly around. The odor undoubtedly would have been a nauseating mixture of urine, tobacco, and various cleaning products. He would have seen the rooms containing anywhere between 6 and 20 beds. Through the window, he would have seen the garden and the yard. Artaud went often into these gardens. It seems they pleased him. He would come always to the same place in the gardens, and there In a state of delirium, he would attempt to disenchant certain fellow patients he believed to be the victims of spells. We will turn now to treatments as they were practiced during the period. One of the most basic treatments, evidently, was bathing. Various prescriptions were made, calming bath and irritating bath, in which patients remained for up to 48 hours. There were cold showers and so-called Scottish showers. Teas were given daily, as well as medicinal calmants, such as chloral syrup, veronal, gardenal, and the one most precious to Artaud, laudanum. Ensuite, il faut attendre midi, occuper son temps. Antonin Artaud est oisif, petit. Tous ses écrits seront d'ailleurs détruits chaque soir. Another treatment has just been premiered in 1933 by the Italians Celletti and Bini. Electroshock. Nearly all Western hospitals would come to use this treatment, and the man responsible for importing the treatment was none other than Dr. Rondepierre, chief doctor at the Maison de Santé at Villevrard. Electroshock was most often used, hospitals aside, in asylums populated by indigent patients who were not paying per diem. More than half such patients were subjected to the treatment, receiving often as many as 100, 120, and even 150 electroshocks. Electroshock was not administered to Artaud during his stay at Villevrard. His transfer allowed him to avoid the treatment here, as it wasn't until the end of 1942 that all preliminary tests made before the treatment could be prescribed were completed. Even had it been ready, Dr. Menuot was not persuaded at the time that electroshock would have been beneficial for Artaud. Psychiatrists diagnosed Artaud with various conditions, each in its turn. Delusions of persecution, paranoid delusions, chronic hallucinatory psychosis, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorder, drug-induced mania, etc. However, as Dr. Lucien Bonafé, an intern who treated Artaud at Villevrard, was fond of saying, a given diagnosis often speaks more about the examiner than the subject examined. Today, the medical establishment believes, for the most part, that Artaud was overtaken by bipolar psychosis, causing him to alternate between paranoid character traits and dissociative schizoid symptoms. The work of Antonin Artaud continues regularly to provoke, but it would be interesting to determine just what sort of acceptance Artaud's readers have allowed him. Would Artaud have been received in the same way had he not spent time in psychiatric hospitals? Would he not have been simply unoriginal, but a forgotten one? One should ask oneself to what degree this examination of Artaud is a voyeuristic one, and to what degree one should read Artaud as either poet or madman. His attraction lies, in no small part, in his madness. His hospitalization, and perhaps psychiatry in general, play the part here of the seal or stamp which, in classifying the poet within the realm of pathology, allows his work to be accepted no matter how deranged they might be. There is, in this case, a shift of values and references, and the classification psychopath allows the reader some distance so as not to feel too close to the poet, and so that his poems will not awaken too much resonance in the reader.